Was that a beer you had, Brad?
Brad drinking a beer on the
Brad
show?
drinking a beer?
No, Diet Pepsi.
Pre-gaming? Oh, dang it, man.
I had the beer at lunch, so you guys couldn't
okay.
see it on
Yeah.
camera.
Dang it.
Lunch beer.
Lunch beer. Nothing wrong with lunch
That's
beer.
the best.
Yeah. Oh no. I gotta remember to unmute that. Hello. Welcome. We're live. We're live.
Oh.
Ooh. I hear somebody else popped in. Hello. Hello. What is today? Tuesday?
Hello.
Today's Tuesday. It is Tuesday.
Yeah.
It is hot here in San Francisco. It's gonna be woe is us. It's gonna be a high of like 84. But that's hot. That's hot for around here.
That's hot.
That's hot for around here because nobody really has AC in their homes. In the Bay, I'll say, the closer you get to water, the less likely you are to have AC. When you get away from the water, then there's places that have AC for sure. But yeah, so when I look at the fan, which is not, I'm not going to say that's an accurate test reading, like my little stand-up fan that I have in my apartment. When it reads like 82 inside the living room, that's when I'm like, oh boy, it is warm in here. Toasty. I'm wearing shorts. You can't see. I'm wearing shorts. Rocking
I'm
the
naked
shorts.
from the waist down.
Oh wow,
Can't see it.
dang, can't see it. Good thing we'd get
see 'em.
demonetized like that.
I missed the memo. Everyone's wearing shorts except for me.
I got pants on,
Oh, okay.
which is a change because I've worn shorts for most of the last 3 months, but it rained yesterday. It's cooler today. We have a high of 83, but for Colorado, that's not that hot. We've been like in the 90s most of the past week. So,
Nice.
Jealous.
but I have AC.
Yeah,
Oh,
lucky.
Lucky.
Oh, there's Elena.
I just want to say that one of my good friends calls what Brad is quote unquote doing Winnie the Poohing, which I think is freaking hilarious.
They're pulling that down. Oh, Winnie the Pooh. Oh, okay. Without
Because he doesn't have pants on.
Got it. Okay, I like that. That's the best way to go when it's hot out too, for sure. Just let it all right out. Hello.
I think you saying you like that is sexually harassing me, and that's not tolerable in the workplace.
I'm
Adam.
sorry. I'm gonna get a call from HR. I gotta get my phone on my desk. Oh boy.
Just put on a kilt.
Don't worry about it.
Adam, we heard everything.
We're here to talk about computer stuff. Don't worry about any of that.
Documented.
This isn't live, right? We're not live yet. No.
We're alive. Everyone's in
Oh.
the chat right now. Oh my goodness.
All the cool kids.
All the cool kids in the chat. Oh, man.
And we had a couple super chats already. CR
Yeah.
Poll, friend of the show, gave us $2. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thermal heat fixes. Why no love for pads? I don't know if you're talking about the discussion we were just having about pants or pantsless, but can you put a thermal pad on your body and then like stand up against a vinyl side or like a siding on the house and the heat will wick away quicker? Is that how it would work? Is there an equivalent to a thermal pad for a human body? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Like you can stick like 10 thermal pads on you, and there you go.
But they got to go somewhere, right? The thermal pad just helps.
I feel like they
transfer
would
the heat
stop
somewhere.
the airflow, and so like you'd get sweaty under the pads.
Yeah. I'm not digging this, but I mean, somebody has made a thermal pad somewhere for a human body, so
You need an earth suit.
in their suit. And we got a $5 super chat from friend of the show, VC Jesters. Thank you so much. Said that's because housing in San Francisco costs about $500 per square foot, and AC takes up precious space.
Accurate.
Not even 500. It's like 1,000 per square foot.
Yeah. I was
Accurate.
like, that's pretty low, man.
I know.
If you could find
Transplant
something,
my house over to California, and
and then you're a millionaire. You'd
Yeah.
have your own yacht.
3,600 square feet.
There you go. All right, we got fun stuff to talk about today, not just the temperature. We had to get that out of the way. We're talking about GPUs, which produce heat. We're talking about FSR, which helps, maybe mitigate some heat. Is FSR a software version of a thermal pad?
No.
No, it doesn't work. That doesn't make sense.
It's
And then
snake oil. Oh wait, no, sorry.
and then upcoming Intel CPU news as well. So I say we just run right into it. Everyone, Elena, you good?
Everyone good?
Yeah, I just might have to secretly move off the screen for a little bit
Yeah.
because the cat's doing his thing.
Understand.
Do what you need to do. I get some thermal pads for Splat. Anyway, cool. I think we should do it. I'm going to bring up my notes just in case, so I don't mess this up. I don't want to mess it up. All right.
Alrighty. Go ahead, Adam.
Here we go. In this episode of The Full Nerd, new Radeon GPUs announced along with FSR 3.0, and hot scoops on upcoming Intel CPUs. Welcome to episode 268. I think I numbered
69.
that. 69? Oh,
69.
no, you need to change it on YouTube. Then I totally forgot to change the number. So 269. We are editing the post as we speak because 269 episodes. That's a lot of episodes.
That's a whole lot of episodes.
Yeah, I'm your fill-in host, Adam Patrick Murray. We have the co-hostess with the mostest, Brad Charkis, on the line. Hello, Brad.
Hello, Internet.
We have Elena Yee with a hair bun that's particularly placed on top of your head. Hello, Elena.
Sorry, I was not expecting that.
It just looks like a bun.
Top of my head.
Yeah, it's just
Hi, everybody.
like it just looks like a little bun you could take off your head and just eat.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it looks like a cinnamon bun because it's got the color, like the lighter color. It just looks like
I'm sure
a
audio
cinnamon bun.
listeners are just like,
Yeah.
what the heck is happening?
She does not have an actual cinnabon on top of her head.
You
but
know
it
what?
looks
Though
like
I
it.
wouldn't be against it though.
Yeah, that's not a bad place.
Because it means I would have a cinnamon roll nearby.
Well, Jared Walton from Tom's Hardware, are you pro or anti Cinnabon?
They're all right. Like it's not like my favorite thing, but they're
All right,
fine.
get out of
In
here.
fact,
Kick 'em
where
out.
I live, wait. So
kidding.
where I live in Johnstown, Colorado, and the one thing most people know about Johnstown is there's this convenience store, gas station, whatever, up the freeway from me
Mhm.
called Johnson's Corner, and they sell massive, like massive cinnamon buns.
Okay, sure, I'll dig that.
They're not even that good, is what I've heard. I haven't had one, but they're disgustingly huge.
Contrary to popular belief on this show, not everything you get at a gas station is amazing. Gordon would like to point out he loves gas station coffee.
I thought it was
and-
sushi.
was
No?
it?
And
Did he
chicken.
talk? Oh, you know what? Yeah, Gordon just loves everything from
Everything from
gas
gas
station.
station.
Yeah, controlling the
Gas
verticals.
station pizza.
Controlling the verticals and horizontals is Willis Lai.
Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I don't want to say Taco Tuesday anymore. I want to say happy Dim Sum Tuesday. Yeah, that's
Oh.
what I'm craving for. Dim Sum.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, buns
After
everywhere.
Yeah,
last
both.
week's discussion, I did definitely go have tacos. that
Nice.
evening, though.
Hey, there we go. Well, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna discuss some stuff that you don't want to put in your mouth today, and we're gonna start off with new Radeon GPUs. We got two of them that got announced. We talked about this before because the leaks came pretty hot and heavy. So officially at the Gamescom live stream, AMD announced two new GPUs. Brad, why don't you tell the fine folks what these GPUs are if they didn't already know?
Yeah, the leaks came hot and heavy beforehand. It turns out they were pretty much right. AMD announced the $499 Radeon RX 7800 XT and the $449 Radeon RX 7700 XT. There's so many numbers and X's and R's in there that I always have to think through it. Yeah, and they both are aimed at 1440p gaming, not 1080p, unlike NVIDIA's $400 to $500 offerings, which are firmly 1080p cards. The 7800 XT has 16 gigs of memory, which is great. That's what you want in a 1440p card. The 7700 XT has 12 gigabytes, which is also great for 1440p gaming. And yeah, it's looking like they're going to be pretty, well positioned on paper versus the RTX 4060 Ti and the RTX 4070 for less price, but we'll have to see how the test works out. The most interesting thing to me is that the 7800 XT actually has fewer compute units and internal hardware than the 6800 XT did, but it's launching for $150 cheaper. So I think that's the most interesting thing to look at going into this.
Yeah, actually, real quick, we got a super chat from friend of the show, Skeet Sayer, gave us $5 Canadian. Thank you so much, and said people are saying that the 6800 XT will be faster than the 7800 XT. Is it because of the chiplet versus single chip? design? I mean, well, obviously it hasn't been tested. We don't know, but what?
AMD released some numbers though.
Okay. And
So what they showed was 4070 versus 7800 XT.
okay.
And interestingly, I have like my own benchmarks, and they overlapped AMD's benchmarks on. I'm not benchmarks of the 7800, but benchmarks of the 4070, as well as other GPUs, right? So I overlapped on Red Dead Redemption 2, Forza Horizon 5, Far Cry 6, and what else did I have? Cyberpunk 2077. No, because I didn't test Cyberpunk with ray tracing or without ray tracing. Some other game. Oh, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. There we go. So looking at my percentages, the 7800 XT looks like it's going to be a very close match for the 6900 XT, which is about 6% faster than a 6800 XT. So that's just kind of, going off of what I see in my benchmarks of existing cards versus what AMD showed of an existing card versus the new card. So I think it'll probably be pretty close to 6800 XT, a little bit faster, but also roughly at the level of the 6900 XT.
But at that cheaper price, that's
at a lower price.
Yeah.
So the
Like
6800 XT right now goes for about 500, maybe 520 is the bottom price right now.
Okay.
So it's like a little bit lower than that, and it's like, well, yeah, the 6800 XT has come down since launch. Obviously for 2 years, it was at stupid pricing. And then cryptocurrency mining thankfully ended. So it's come down to more reasonable levels. But in terms of like price performance for what's already available, it feels like a lateral move.
Feels like that's so much of this generation. That's the real answer. But
Yeah. Well, speaking of more pricing stuff, the only difference between both these cards is $50. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is that?
I was surprised by that.
Okay.
Well, and it's not just that, it's $50. Like the bigger issue for me is the 7700 XT is like it's 6% less compute, because it only has, so it's got 6 of the compute units turned off, but I think it's got higher clocks than the 6800 XT. I might be mixing those up. Yeah. So it ends up with only like 6% less raw compute, but then it's got like 25% less memory and 31% less memory bandwidth, because the memory is also clocked slower. And so it's like, okay, well, that should make a pretty sizable difference in performance, but then it only costs 10% less. So it's like, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, this card exists to say you should buy the $500 card, not the $450 card.
Yeah, it's unfortunate too, because they're comparing it very heavily against in AMD's numbers. The only numbers they showed, they compared against the 4060 Ti, 16 gigabytes specifically, or because that is honestly a 1080p card for $500. But against the same basic performance outside of the very few memory capacity constrained games as the $400 4060 Ti. And I think if they had come in and priced this at 425 or 400, it probably would have made it much more compelling if it winds up testing as well as it looks in AMD's numbers.
So remind me real quick. So the 7800 XT is $100 cheaper than the launch price of the 6800 XT, correct?
150.
6800 XT was $650.
Oh, okay. So $150.
So it's dropped $150.
So how does the 7700 XT launch price compare to the 6700 XT launch price?
The 6700 XT launch price was $479.
Yeah, I think that's right. I remember saying this card sucks. It's a good card, but it sucks that it's almost $500.
Like, this is the real problem, is it's not the price, it's the name. The 7800 XT feels like it should have been called the 7700 XT, and the 7700 XT feels like it should be more like the 6600 XT. Just not based on like necessarily price or all these other things, but just in terms of generationally, I'm like a 7800 should be substantially faster than a 6800. It should be, more like the 6950. And then the 7700 should be more like a 6800 XT or maybe even the 6900 XT. Like that's what in my mind should have happened. And instead we're getting like this, well, performance isn't there, but we've bumped the model names, which is what NVIDIA kind of did. Like the 4070 should have been the 4070 Ti. The 4070 Ti should have been the 480. No, other way. 4070 should have been called the 4060 Ti. 4070 Ti should have been the 4070. All of those could have been knocked down one GPU naming SKU, and it would have made more sense. Like the 4090 was fine. The 4060 should have been called the 4050, and then people wouldn't be upset.
Well, they'll find something to be upset about.
Well, if it costs $250 as well, like instead of $300.
Yeah.
And that's like when the 7900 series first came out. I liked it, but I'm like, it really feels like the 7900 XT should be the 6800 XT, and they're taking more off the top. They bumped it up. And I feel like that's going on for both NVIDIA and AMD this generation. I don't like it. I get they have to meet their margins and whatnot, but I don't like it as someone who likes to actually have affordable graphics cards for gamers. But the other thing that's interesting to me is we'll have to wait and see how the card tests out, obviously. But even regardless of that, there's this massive gulf now between the $900 MSRP of the 7900 XT and the $500 MSRP of the 7800 XT. I'm really surprised that they decided to name these 7700 XT and 7800 XT and still only have a $50 gap between them. Like, it's a really weird product generation, like the way the performance and price and all winds up landing out.
You also have to wonder, like, I mean, they've got these GPU chiplets. So you've got the Navi 32 GCD, the graphics compute chiplet, which is smaller than the GCD that's on the 7900 series. And it links up to 4 MCDs, memory cache dies. But like they've got the 4 memory cache and the 3 memory cache. And it's like, well, shouldn't there be a 7800 in between them? Will there be a 7700 non-XT? We don't know. I think because of the market, those probably won't exist, but maybe down the road something else gets pushed out. But yeah, it feels like this could have been 7800 XT, 7800, and then there would be a 7700 XT that maybe would have been more like what we're seeing, but fewer compute. And then the 7800 could have had the full 16 gigabytes instead of 12 gigabytes. That would have made more sense to me. But I don't know if the market would have really cared, right?
Mm-hmm. They didn't give themselves much wiggle room for product naming in the future, though. At this point, though,
I mean, they could always adjust the price, right? If the 7700 XT sometime later drops down $100, like that kind of.
I'm still wondering if they'll drop the price at the last minute. They've done that multiple times in the past couple generations where they say one price and then it drops $50 or $20 or whatever. I kind of feel like the 7800 XT feels okay, like not awesome, but it's okay. The 7700 XT, I feel like that could definitely drop down to $400 instead of $450, and that would make it more palatable.
Well, compared to the 2 cards that they did show, you mentioned the 4060 Ti 16 gig version versus the 7700 XT and the 4070. Is that what they compared against the 7800 XT?
Yep.
Was it generally favorable? Does it look like, hey, you know what? If you're looking in that price range, that the AMD options are going to be competitive, if not better?
Yeah,
at least according to their data.
Yeah, according to their data, if heavy ray tracing that uses lots of ray tracing effects, NVIDIA still wins. It's still going to win. The 7800 XT, I forget. I have it right here. Varies anywhere from 2% to 23% faster. 23% faster in Cyberpunk, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Bunch of things in between. Loses in a bunch of ray trace titles. But the 7700 XT, according to AMD's numbers, is significantly faster than the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte. There's only a couple of heavily ray trace games that it's not. So, I really wish that thing was $400 because that's the same as the 4060 Ti 8 GB would be the same performance, and it'd have performance and memory advantage. I feel like putting it at 450 is kind of a weird place for it.
I mean, like
it looks like it will be faster.
The 4060 Ti 16 GB is a terrible card. That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's like the extra $100 for no extra memory bandwidth, no real performance advantage, except in the edge cases where it's like, usually the edge cases are you're running at 4K and maxed out settings. And it's like, this card really has no business doing that. So, who cares? So it's just kind of like no one really should buy the 4060 Ti 16 GB unless it's like, I'm running AI models that need 16 gig. I don't want to buy a 4080 and I don't need a lot of compute. So it's comparing it against a card that no one should buy is it's dumb.
Yeah.
But NVIDIA shot themselves in the foot with this like $100 price difference. So it's like AMD's like, oh, we'll compare against the $500 card rather than the $400 card. And yeah, it's just marketing stuff. I mean, if you look at AMD's benchmarks too, it's like, well, Cyberpunk is the big ray tracing name, but they didn't turn on ray tracing. Watch Dogs Legion is an NVIDIA game, but then you've got Last of Us, Resident Evil, a bunch of AMD promoted games that have been, so it's the typical marketing thing. You show the benchmarks for games where you're generally better, and they have others in there scattered throughout, but it's an AMD heavy test suite to certainly put their GPUs in the best light.
What do you think, if anything, NVIDIA will do with this announcement? Do you think we're going to see any price drops? Any new GPUs? NVIDIA likes to get out there and counterpunch.
I kind of doubt it. I mean, like the hard thing right now, and NVIDIA's GPUs for consumers, they're all generally feeling overpriced. I think the 4060 is more or less okay-ish, but the 4060 Ti through 4080 all feel like they're too high. But the problem is, should NVIDIA make more of these and sell them for less, or should they just make more data center GPUs that are selling for $30,000 plus? Like,
if you're a business person, I know the answer from a business perspective. So
like they're saying they're going to sell 500,000 H100 GPUs this year is the projection. And at $30,000 a piece, that's $15 billion in revenue. That's more than their gaming market will make by double, probably. Whatever it is. I didn't even do that math right, but whatever. It's a ton of money.
Math sucks. Don't worry about it.
And the thing is, they're projected to double to triple the number that they sell next year of the H100. Like, AI is going crazy, and NVIDIA is going to rake in a ton of money off of that. And if they don't make as many consumer GPUs because people aren't buying them, I mean, that's the smart business decision.
Huh.
Hey.
Oh, great. Are they going to have reference designs of these cards, or is it just going to be all AIB?
Yes and no.
Yeah, the 7800 will have a reference design, but 7700 won't.
Okay. And have they said launch dates for these?
September 6th.
Okay, so next week.
Ooh.
Yes, next week.
That is.
It's interesting too, because like the reference designs, the 7800 XT reference design, it's dual fans, but it has the same like design language as the 7900 XT. But the power is still what they say, 263 watts. It's some slightly weird number.
Yeah, something like that.
263.
So it kind of feels like, I mean, for the amount of power, I'm kind of like, man, you should have just kept the third fan and gone with the 7900 XT cooler, maybe, but I don't know. Wait, like I think maybe that cooler is too expensive, and that's why they didn't do a 7700 XT reference design, because they're like, no, we'll leave that to the AIBs.
Wait, are you saying the TDP is the same as the card above it?
They're very close. Like the 7700 XT is 250 watts or 240. What is it?
245.
Yeah, it's only like 18 or something watts less.
Interesting.
Which again is really surprising when you look at the specs. You're like, wait, you chopped off a bunch of RAM, but you didn't chop off like power or compute very much.
Yeah.
Well, do you think?
But
No, go
they
ahead.
did use the clocks, so I wonder if it's just that sensitive. It makes me curious to see how much overclocking headroom these things wind up having.
Yeah.
I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
Please don't kill us. We're live on the air.
So I would like to interject with a question.
Please.
Given everything that we've said so far about the cards and the fact that we're not expecting, like you said, Brad, earlier, about it being more of a lateral move, who are these cards really going to be for? You know, like, is it somebody who, like one of our Discord regulars who's held on to their 970 for ages and it finally gives up the ghost? So they're like, okay, well, I guess I have to replace it with something. Is it someone who's been holding their card for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, like right before the pandemic? So I guess that's 4 years now. Is it for someone who wants the AV1 encoding that badly and doesn't mind a little bit of a side grade? I'm trying to figure out based on, so if the market's going towards AI and all the resources are being poured towards that, and we're probably maybe not going to see a lot of potentially not more heavy innovation down the road or trickling to gamers quickly, like if people are trying to time their buying to get the most out of bang for their buck, like who is this card for? I guess that's my question.
You want to go first, Jared?
Sure. I mean, you know, if you've already got a 6000 series, there's no real need to update, right? AMD compared the cards against the RTX 2070 Super, RX 5700 XT, and they're showing, you know, decent gains there. I think AV1 it's not bad, AV1 encoding, but it's not that big of a deal. Mostly because HEVC and AV1 are very close in quality. So it's more like, hey, AV1 has different requirements and it doesn't have royalties. It's not because you're getting better quality or lower bit rates or anything.
Well, no, you can do more with lower bit rates though, with AV1.
Then HEVC though?
Yeah.
Not really.
The testing I've seen.
H264, it's a big jump.
Yeah.
But HEVC was already a big jump kind of thing. So like in my testing, it was you know, within 2% on the called score.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it's like earth shattering, but I mean there definitely are benefits, and I mean a lot of YouTube is definitely going to be moving in that direction.
Yeah.
So
YouTube will push it heavily because
Twitch,
because of also the royalty free nature, right?
Yeah, of course.
So that's the big one. Anyway, so AV1 I don't really worry about. I think if you've got a 4 years old card, you could upgrade, but then you kind of go, well, you've had theoretically the same level of performance for the same price almost for a year. Like the 6800 XT has been selling in that $500 to $550 range since basically last December when the 7900 cards were launched. And so it's like, well, you didn't upgrade then. Would you upgrade for the same performance? Probably not. So it's more like, hey, I need to build a new system. My card died or something like that. And then you look out there and you go, what's the best card that I'm willing to buy? And in this case, they're saying at $500, give or take, right? And so then you have to decide, do I want to go NVIDIA or do I want to go AMD for that price? And even though they show performance as being generally better, I still think NVIDIA wins on features because they're more efficient and they've got DLSS 3 frame generation. They've got DLSS. Those are both more widely supported than FSR2. FSR3 we'll talk about in a bit. It's coming. We don't know how that will be. So like there's reasons people go to the NVIDIA ecosystem, good or bad, whether you like it or not. A lot of people don't like it, but there are reasons for it. So I think it ends up being a lot closer in terms of what you'd think of price performance than maybe AMD's charts show.
Well, and here's
No,
go ahead, Brett.
I just wanted to give my own answer to Elena's thing. So if you're going to piggyback about Jared, why don't you go first?
I mean, it was to Elena's thing as well. But
okay, for me, I think these cards are for people who want 1440p gaming and don't want to spend $600+ to do it. Because to me, the 4060 Ti 8 gigabyte and 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte can theoretically, at least in some games, handle 1440p. And I saw that in my own testing too. We can handle 1440p just fine. But with the way the memory controller is set up, I definitely wouldn't be buying that for 1440p long term. You'd have to hop all the way up to a 4070. So, but I mean, $600+ is a ton of money to spend for 1440p gaming, in my opinion. So if you, for whatever reason, having to upgrade right now, I think that having these two options are very realistic 1440p options for people, even if they don't have the NVIDIA advantage, even as far as software and all that goes. Like, to me, $600 is too much for 1440p gaming. And the 4060 Ti is just a 1080p card long term in my head. So that's why I see this likely falling. What I would probably do if it does wind up indeed being about the speed of 6900 XT, I might wait and see like a month from now if there's still 6900 XTs or 6800 XTs around, those up at a greater discount.
6900 XTs disappeared. They're all 6950s now.
Yeah. Yep.
It's funny because like the 6950 is $600 ish. And then the 6900 XT, like the best you'll find, they're like 750, 800. Some people still tried to sell them for 900. It's like, yeah, whatever.
That was actually my next question, where it's like, okay, after these cards launch, which route would you go? Last gen for cheaper, hopefully fire sale, or a newer gen? So that answers that question.
It's also going to come down to efficiency. Like, the power numbers of RDNA 3 in general haven't looked awesome. I don't know if that's because like the Infinity Fabric and GPU chiplets and all that stuff that they've done, like it costs more power to transfer bits over this Infinity Fabric or whatever we're calling it that links the chiplets and the main GCD. So it's like you got to go from the memory to the chiplet and then from the chiplet to the other chiplet. And so it's like, I don't know how much extra power that uses, but just in general, it hasn't felt like a huge upgrade. Whereas, and part of that might just be because, NVIDIA went from Samsung 8 nanometer to TSMC 4 nanometer TSMC, whereas AMD went from 7 to 5 within TSMC. Yep. But their chiplets, their memory chiplets are still 6. So it's like they didn't get that big of an advantage because Samsung's 8 nanometer was really a 10 nanometer class node. So they almost got 2 full generational upgrades when they shifted, and that gave them a huge efficiency advantage. And power. Electricity costs money. If you're playing a lot of games, like that might be something to factor in too. I'm like, yeah, it's over the year, but if you were looking at $600 4070 that runs at like, what's the 4070 TDP? Isn't it like 200 or something? I don't have it off the top of my head. Let's look. Yeah, so 200 versus 250 watts. Like, I don't know how much you guys pay in power, but that could add up to $30, $40 a year.
Yep.
And then you start going, well, gosh, maybe I should just spend the $600 and get the comparable performance, maybe faster performance in DLSS, get all the other NVIDIA marketing stuff. I don't know.
I remember when reviewing graphics cards was easy.
Yeah.
Back in my day.
Yeah. The thing I hate about NVIDIA's lineup right now is they've really widened the gap at every level. Like the 3090 and the 3080 were relatively close, like 10%. Now it's like 4090 and 4080 are like up to 30% gap. 4080 to 4070 Ti also up to like a 25-30% gap. Like there's almost a 20 to 30% gap between every one of NVIDIA's cards. And it used to be generally like, especially as you got to the top, you would pay more for incremental gains. And now they're like, no, we're just going to milk you for all it's worth. So, there's reasons to buy a 4090 now. It's not for the last 5%. It's for the last 30%. So people go, 30% more performance. I maybe should do that.
Well, I am looking at an awesome article on Tom's Hardware called GPU Hierarchy, GPU Benchmarks Hierarchy, however you want to you want to search for it in your Googles. And I'm looking at a GTX 1080, which, if I remember correctly, that's around a $500 card, the non-Founders Edition, right?
Launched at 550, later dropped to 500, I think.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
maybe it was
Or
different
6.
than that.
6 and
Launched
5. It
at
wound up at 5.
So if you're a GTX 1080 person, you know, maybe you were like, okay, you know what, I was willing to spend 500 then, I'm willing to spend about 500 now. We don't know the numbers. We don't know the official numbers yet, but you're putting, I'm looking at the 1440p Ultra, the generational performance chart, however you want to call it. And I'm looking at the 1080, and your average frames per second is 40 frames per second. That's smooth 40. And the 4070 is just under 100. So that's a little bit more than double. I mean, depending on where the 7800 XT will fall in your chart, maybe a little higher.
Like if you look at the 6900 XT, like that's my estimate of where it lands.
Okay. So about 110 maybe ish.
Yeah. So I'm like, it could be, that's almost, it's not triple the performance, but it's like
It's
2.5 times.
Yeah. Which is usually, that's a good point, right? When you're
That's
like,
a
hey,
big
you know
upgrade,
what? Yeah,
yeah.
if I'm going to pay the same money, $500-ish, and get about, almost 3 times the performance, it's not bad.
Yeah.
So maybe that's who it's for. I don't know. Just go over to the GPU hierarchy article.
Yes. I guess the other question too that we're kind of seeing in chat right now is like the longevity on cards like these,
Mhm.
right? Because the 1080 that you just mentioned, that came out in 2016?
Yeah.
Like, and so you've gotten what? I can do math. That's like
I can't.
7 years?
Yeah.
7 years on $500, right? I mean, do we think that getting a $500 card today is going to have those kind of legs?
It's part of the generational thing too. Like the 1080 was a big advance. Pascal architecture was a pretty big jump over Maxwell. Turing wasn't as big of an advance. It pushed ray tracing. Ampere was a pretty decent advance, but then we had cryptocurrency screw everything up. I don't feel like Ada is a massive performance advance. There's like, it could have been if they'd priced it lower, but instead they increased prices everywhere. So you're like, okay, well, look, it's 40% faster than a 3080 if you get a 4080, but it also costs $700 more or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, and AMD, like I said, it feels pretty, it's going up a little bit. Like the 7600 is faster than a 6650 XT, but not by much. And they cost a little bit more. And it feels like that same thing applies to every level of the 7000 series. If the 8000 series hypothetically is a bigger advance, then, maybe it causes the current and previous generation to outdate more quickly. But I mean, you've got consoles that aren't getting any faster right now. So until you get a next generation console, I don't think we're going to push the high end of the GPU market that much higher than it already is.
Well, maybe if you're on your GTX 1080, you can just use FSR 3 and get a little extra performance until the next generation. I don't know. FSR 3. So that was announced. Okay. FSR 3 had been talked about for a bit.
It's now coming soon, and they've announced 2 games at least, with a bunch more that are coming.
And specifically, what do they call it? Fluid motion frames? Is that?
Yep.
Yeah, I think they'd given that name before when they first announced FSR 3, but like we haven't. I mean, what does that even mean? It means frame generation is what it means.
It means extra frames inserted. If you want to switch over to FSR 3 on the thing. So yeah, the thing I'm curious about. FSR 3 has the advantage of being platform agnostic or device agnostic, right? You can run FSR on AMD, NVIDIA, Intel, but FSR 3.0 with the fluid motion frames, is that the same? Is it still, can be played on anything? We haven't
seen it, right? Like, well, they say it will be able to be played on everything, and in fact, they also said that they will have driver level support to do the frame rate doubling tech, even on games that don't support it. So kind of like you've got the RSR Radeon Super Resolution, where you can do upscaling in the drivers via spatial upscaling. So it's not the better quality temporal upscaling that FSR2 uses, but you can apply that elsewhere. They say they've got stuff working where you can apply the fluid motion frames stuff to games that don't explicitly support it. So that's kind of cool. Obviously, that does not help non-AMD users because it's a driver thing, right?
Yeah, that's the thing I guess I'm kind of curious about. So the fluid motion frames, the best implementation is at the developer level inside the game, and that can be used on multiple cards. But if you're using it at the driver level in games that don't have the full support, sure, it's not as good, but you can use it. But it's at the driver level, meaning that's only AMD cards. Am I reading that correct?
Yeah, that's how I saw it.
Is there any indication, or maybe just an estimation of like, okay, what is going to be the difference practically, like performance wise? Like, of course, at the developer level, it's probably going to be better visually, but what about performance?
It's hard to talk too much about any of this, in my opinion, because AMD still hasn't really deeply explained how it's different from FrameGen. Like, we know it doesn't use the AI test. We use the shader cores. We have a general idea of how it works, but it's still largely a mystery. Like you can go in and dig through the developer stuff and get a good sense for it, but we don't know how it could vary so much in how it looks, how fast it performs, all this, all that. Like the immediate comparison is versus DLSS 3, obviously, but we don't know if it actually compares to DLSS 3 in quality until we're able to touch it.
Yeah, it's like the idea of frame smoothing, which is really what these technologies are, interpolation. Like, that's not new. There's TVs that do frame smoothing and have been around for
not in my house. Not
decades.
In my house.
Not in my house.
Immediately turn
not allowed to.
Yeah,
but like that exists, and so it's a question of, is AI training based network running on NVIDIA's optical flow accelerator hardware that says it has 325 tera ops of compute, something like that. Like, is that going to be better than a generic interpolation algorithm running on compute shaders that obviously will range? You've got low end cards like a GTX 1050 that are like 2 teraflops up to cards that might have 100 or more teraflops of compute available. And it's like, well, how much does it actually need? And is all the excess compute that NVIDIA supposedly has, is it really improving the quality, or is it just kind of marketing? I mean, it's tough to say until we see it in practice. Fundamentally, though, like, I don't see how FSR3 can look better than DLSS 3, and DLSS 3 is not perfect, right? And DLSS 3 is also like, it adds latency to create smoother flow, but you can feel it.
Or the latency is the same as if you had it off, but because you're increasing the frames, it feels like the latency's
they require you to have NVIDIA Reflex to do DLSS 3, which is like, that was a smart move. AMD, it looks like they're going to kind of require that game support anti-lag to support FSR3.
Isn't it anti-lag plus now? Is that what it's called?
Or both. Yeah. It's not clear whether you need anti-lag plus. I don't even really know what the real differences are between the plus and the not. Yeah. But it's like, even if a game supports FSR3 and anti-lag plus, if you're not running it on an AMD card, then you actually don't get the anti-lag benefit. You only get the frame doubling benefit. So it's like, well, it might run on a GTX 1080, but it might increase latency a lot more, because instead of going render frame, show frame while you're rendering the next frame, show frame while you're rendering the next frame, you're going render frame, hold that for a minute. Okay, we've rendered the next frame, show this frame, interpolate this frame, show this frame while we're rendering here. So you're doing 2 frames are rendered, interpolating and showing, which means you've added 2 frames of latency.
Oh, huh.
Yep.
So
And at 60 frames per second, that's 33 milliseconds. So it's noticeable.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, huh. So I didn't realize there was still so many open questions around this stuff, but they did announce some games that are supporting it. I'm assuming it's Starfield, right?
No, I don't think that was one of them.
No, it's not.
That would have been a good one though.
That would have been huge if they'd said that.
that would have been the one.
Mhm.
No, I think it was one of them was Forspoken, right?
Yeah.
The other one was Avium.
Yeah.
Okay.
Immortals.
Immortals of Avium. Yeah. So,
And they've also got Avatar, Cyberpunk will be adding it.
oh, okay.
Then Space Marine 2, Frostpunk 2, Alters, don't know that game. Squad, don't know that. Starship Troopers Extermination.
But-
Wukong.
So that's the developer implementation. What about when the driver level one comes out?
Yeah,
Did
that's
they
not clear
know?
either.
Oh, okay.
Oh, they had said
Fall.
well, Frank Azor said FSR 3 is coming out in these games in September. We know that. Hyper RX, which is the feature that turns all the things on to improve performance, is coming out September 6th as well, alongside the graphics cards. So that'll turn on Radeon Super Resolution. That'll turn on Radeon Anti-Lag. And there is one more.
Radeon Boost.
Radeon Boost. Yeah. To increase performance. And so the fluid motion frames are going to be added to that bundle, basically. So you'll be able to turn that on, and that'll get included in there to boost performance even more. The way I think it'll wind up, because your initial question was FSR 3 versus fluid motion frames at the driver level.
Yeah.
I think we can already look at Radeon Super Resolution as a way that kind of works, because Radeon Super Resolution is just the simple upscaling that you get,
Mhm.
The spatial upscaling. So if you're using it in HyperRX, that's what you're using. And the difference between FSR 1 and Radeon Super Resolution is then it can get a little wonky, a little muddy on like UI elements and stuff like that, because it's just doing the whole thing. Whereas if a developer goes in here and actually implements FSR 3.0, then it gets the temporal motion, FSR 2 stuff, it gets the fluid motion frames. I'm assuming they'll be handling those upscaling elements more.
Mhm.
So I think FSR 3 will be the preferred thing. But the idea of having virtually any DirectX 12 or DirectX 11 game be at least able to be played with fluid motion frames in Q1 of next year is pretty exciting on paper, and I can't wait to see what it means in practice.
So for the Hyper, so it's HYPR-RX, right?
Yeah.
So that is
Edgy.
essentially, yeah, in the driver level, it's kind of the way it was described to me was that it was like a one-stop button to hit to get more performance. So yeah, it you hit it on the game that you want to use it in, and then it automatically enables those things to get the most performance out of the game. So, but that's, yeah, that still seems like something that is exclusive to newer GPUs, right? I think that was the question that I had somebody in Discord ask, to be like, wait, this seems like it's only exclusive to 7000.
I'm not sure. Like,
we
I
know
think
that?
it works on 6000, but I'm not positive. I mean, super
I think-
resolution is it upscales whatever lower resolution you use to your monitor's resolution, which, like, it's not quite as flexible as I'd want, because it's like, well, what if I have a 4K monitor, but I want it upscaled to 1440p instead because my GPU is not fast enough to even think about 4K. You don't get that choice, really. I don't know how bad that matters. Radeon Boost is the dynamic resolution thing, so I'm not sure how that works with RSR, right? Because it's like, well, wait, so you're going to do upscaling and then upscaling again? I can see why it would really help performance, but I'm not sure if I like the quality aspect. I guess we'll see. I mean, HyperRX doesn't feel as critical to me as like certain other features might be.
I mean, I think
I think it's really cool. Like, for me, the interesting part when it does come out in Q1 is one, will you be able to turn fluid motion frames on without the other aspects of HyperRX? Because HyperRX is basically just a button that flips on buttons that already existed. It just flips them all on at the same time. And two, I'm interested to see how these fluid motion frames that are inserted between every other rendered frame are going to react when boost is turned on. Because if you're doing the simple spatial upscaling, like that's easy enough to figure out, this is the resolution of the frame I'm going to throw in the middle. But the whole point of boost is whenever you're moving quickly, it dramatically, dynamically lowers the resolution. And I'm just real curious to see how these fluid motion frames interact with that.
I mean, I haven't tried Radeon Boost lately. I know when it first came out, like I toyed with it, and there were definitely some glitchiness in there, where it was like the system was you could get stuttering at times because it was like the system's trying to figure out, hey, what should I actually render at? Whereas without the dynamic scaling, it's like it's really simple. You render at 1080p or 1440p or whatever, and you just do that instead of like, well, should I do 720p, 768p, some in between number. And so like I don't know if that got better. I hope so, but it's like the automatic upscaling stuff, dynamic upscaling always rubs me a little bit wrong. Feels too console-y. Shots fired. Sorry.
No, bad word. Said the word of the day. Console. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So
I think it's all cool. I can't wait to try it, but there definitely are more question marks surrounding all this than you would think just watching AMD's presentation.
Yeah, actually, we did have quite a few people in our Discord be like, "Hey, can you see if somebody from AMD can come on the show and help explain this more?" Because it does seem a little there's a lot to track here, but then once again, man, that makes you guys' job harder for reviewing GPUs. It's not just it played this game at this resolution. At this setting, it's done.
Well, and it's been going that way for basically since the RTX series launched, because all of a sudden NVIDIA's like, hey, look, ray tracing. Hey, look, DLSS, And so then all of a sudden we got a lot more marketing influenced stuff that they can show where it's like, it's like the 40 series NVIDIA benchmarks that NVIDIA shows internal, hey, here's our testing. And it's like, wow, you've got like 70% of the games support DLSS 3. That's amazing.
And this card's three times faster. Yeah. when you use DLSS 3. Okay. Yeah. So speaking of FSR, I kind of quickly made a little video about this. We have an article on the website, but I had a little bit of breaking news that happened. In this I had a chance to sit down with Frank Azor of AMD at a pre-brief around Gamescom, and I asked him specifically about the whole FSR situation in Starfield. If you remember correctly, there was the partnership of AMD and Bethesda to help AMD products perform the best that they can, or including consoles, because those are AMD products, AMD-based products. And then a lot of people ran with that and was like, okay, does that mean FSR is exclusive in Starfield, that you're not going to be able to use DLSS? Which was also interesting because I thought we all hated DLSS. Wait, all of a sudden now we're mad that we don't get access to DLSS? Whatever. I mean, I say more choices for the end person, the better. But also, why get too angry about it? Not quite sure. Maybe just NVIDIA fanboys. Anyway, so the statement that Frank gave was that yes, AMD and Bethesda have a partnership to make the most of AMD based products, and they wanted to prioritize FSR development in Starfield. FSR obviously is an open platform, can be used across multiple devices, works on consoles, Intel, NVIDIA GPUs. So it is a nice choice for gamers. And then the last part of that quote that Frank gave, it was me, and then The Verge was in that meeting as well. They have a separate article saying that if Bethesda wanted to go implement another upscaling solution, that they have AMD's full support. They also released kind of a longer quote that we have in our article as well. I'm not going to go over the whole thing here, but Yeah, it sounds like finally we have a little bit more understanding into that situation. Jared, do you know any more about this?
I mean,
From what I
I
learned?
don't know any more than what was said. Well, I know that when all the big stink about AMD's blocking people from doing DLSS came out, um, 3 months ago, there was a big uproar over it.
It was late
And
June, yeah.
yeah, we like hit AMD up and said, hey, can you comment on this? And at one point they said, yeah, we'll get you a statement by Friday. And then it disappeared. It didn't happen. And, you know, on the one hand, you go, oh, well, that's got to be bad. And I'm like, no, legal is weird. Going through legal causes delays. But like, what's the benefit to AMD of saying don't support DLSS? Like, requiring them to not support it. Like, they're not the bigger market, so they don't have that muscle to throw around like NVIDIA might, where NVIDIA can go, hey, 80 to 90% of PC gamers use NVIDIA cards, right? They can throw that out. Obviously, that's not RTX cards, but whatever. Show me the money. You know, why would AMD actually say, hey, we're helping you out and you're gonna use our tech and we're going to exclude you from using DLSS? It doesn't really make sense for AMD to do that. It would be really kind of dumb. But actually getting the official statement that, hey, we don't do that, I guess it takes a little longer.
Well, so I did ask about deeper contract stuff. Like, okay, does that, like you're saying prioritize, but does that mean at the exclusion of? Because,
Yeah.
you know, you could say, hey, prioritize it. You know, you can do it at the same time, just prioritize FSR. But also that could also mean like, hey, prioritize it by not doing this other thing.
Yeah.
So
it gets messy. Like, feature creep is a real problem in game development. And so it's like, oh, well, I mean, my thing is you've got what's his name? Dark, something dark. He does the DLSS mods.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Yep.
What's his name? You got it?
I don't have it
I
off the
don't
top of my head, no.
One of our guys was talking about it earlier, but he's got like a thing where it's like $5 a month. Patreon gets you access to his DLSS injections, and I guess he's also done it the other way, FSR2 injections. And it's funny because basically what he's saying is if a game supports any of these temporal upscaling techniques, XESS, DLSS, FSR2, then it's not that hard for a modder to come in and redirect things to make it work with the others. So it's like, okay, if a modder can do it, it certainly can't be that difficult. But doing it and doing it well aren't the same thing. I mean,
Yep.
NVIDIA has seemingly opened up to games that they're promoting having FSR2 and XESS as well as DLSS. But I've noticed in some of those games like Redfall, or I'm trying to think what the others were, but like the FSR2 implementation doesn't necessarily feel like it's the optimal, because pretty much you need a sharpening filter as well as the upscaling, and not all of the games that support upscaling seem to have the sharpening filter. So like there's still some funkiness going on, and it takes time, and developers don't always want to put in the time. But yeah, to the developers out there, it's really simple. Like, please just support all three of the upscalers, do XESS, DLSS, and FSR2, and let the users choose which one they want to use.
I mean, for the end user, more option, the better.
In the interim, I do see the flexibility of FSR. Like, if you're like, we're going to have one ready for launch and we want to go to the consoles as well, I do get that FSR would be appealing. A good place to start.
Yeah, it works on everything.
But please, I agree. Come back. If it is simple enough, if it can take a few days, it'll make a lot of PC gamers happy if you can run DLSS, FSR, or XESS.
Yeah, and it also should be noted, like if you support these upscalers, you know, it doesn't always work the same. There's stuff that goes on behind the scene, but you know, the inputs to DLSS and XESS and FSR2 are generally the same. So, you know, I've heard some people suggest that it can take as little as 1 to 2 days for a developer to add FSR2 if they already have DLSS. Like, there's APIs that make it even easier, supposedly. So, you know, don't skip out just because it's easier. XESS is also like, you also need to clarify, like some people go, XESS quality is comparable to DLSS, but it works on everything. That's not true, because XESS runs in two modes. It runs in DP4A on non-Intel, and it runs in XMX mode on Intel. And the XMX mode definitely looks better. So like, I think the DP4A, basically 4-bit integer mode, I think that looks possibly worse than FSR2. And so it's like, yeah, if you don't have AMD and if you have an older GPU, it's like FSR2 is the first pick. If you have an Intel Arc, then XESS is your best pick. And if you have an RTX, then DLSS is your best pick.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, if there was one to be like, oh, hey, you know what, we're going to launch with one, it would be FSR. Because it works across most of the stuff. I can understand why a developer would be like, hey, you know what, we're gonna do this one because I can also hit consoles, handheld devices, which are almost all AMD based. So I could totally see that. But yes,
are a lot of
more
games on
better.
consoles using FSR2? I'm not a console person, so I don't even know.
It, like the PC, at least from what I've seen with Digital Foundry, breakdowns, is that FSR, it still comes in either FSR 1 or 2. Actually, supposedly the newest Zelda title on the Switch uses FSR 1. Even though that's NVIDIA based hardware. So,
that makes sense though, because the Switch is basically like your old Tegra X1 SoC or whatever it was. It's old hardware.
It's a toaster with a screen. I still love mine though.
Yeah.
But it's a toaster with a screen.
So, but it sounds like, at least with the quote and the chat we were having, is that like, hey, listen, Bethesda still has the ability to go in and put that if they want to. Does that mean we're going to come back in a couple months and then, hey, all of a sudden it's got official DLSS or XESS support? I don't know. Could we come back in a year and it's like, hey, this still doesn't have DLSS support? I could see that too. I'm not quite sure. Either way, it sounds like whatever roadblocks people thought were there are not there anymore, at least as of right now. The other question people were had, like, okay, well then they had a couple months to change this. Maybe they changed it in the contract. We don't know. That's pure speculation at this point. We don't know. Either way, right now the word is that, hey, if Bethesda would like to implement it, go for it. So yeah, I think that there's the two things, is like the implementation, and then hopefully, I would like to get a stronger understanding of, hey, is AMD actually doing this contractually? Maybe they changed it in this one, but at least for games going forward, is that a contractual thing? Have they maybe been like, hey, you know what? Okay, going forward, we're gonna be a little less pushy about this. I don't know. So still more questions to get into.
I think it's good.
But,
even that official statement, the big longer one that you put in your article.
Yep.
It says if a developer asks for this, like, yeah, we're cool with it. So that's what it says. That's what it is going forward. So I think that's, regardless of what it was in the past, that's about the best you can hope for going forward in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And
I'm
then
still always curious about like the actual implementations of any of these upscalers, because like in theory, you would think that it would be relatively straightforward and that you would get relatively similar results from the scaling. But even DLSS2, like across a broad suite of games, if you check them all, it's like there's games where it does really poor at upscaling, and you have to go, well, it's got to be on the engine somewhere, but why? Like Red Dead Redemption 2, that's like the poster child for bad DLSS 2 upscaling performance. It gives you like 5-10% sometimes, even at like higher resolutions. It's like, well, Watch Dogs Legion gets 50 to 80% depending on your resolution and settings and stuff. So why isn't Red Dead getting more? And like, there's a bunch of things that go on in the background in game engines that, they were done one way. And if you tack on an upscaler later, it may be harder to implement it and get optimal results. But I think for newer engines, at least, where they're aware of it in advance, it will be better for the upscalers, because they're like, oh yeah, we're building with upscaling in mind so that we don't have these anomalies.
I mean, yeah, either way, it seems like a lot more newer games are implementing some sort of upscaling or I should say FSR specific or DLSS specific upscaling, because there's other different kinds of upscaling. So
demanding games, especially like the games that are actually going to push your hardware really hard.
Yeah,
that's ones that it's the indie stuff doesn't usually need upscaling, but
it's nice to have it.
Yeah,
might as well. But yeah. So anyway, that's FSR and all that kind of fun stuff. I think I realize we're 15 minutes till Brad turns into a pumpkin. Let's move over to Intel news. So I was a mushroom. There you go. So I was recently brought out by Gigabyte to an event for talking about their Z790 refresh for Intel's next gen CPU launch. Now Gigabyte would not confirm what next gen is called apart from next gen. Is it 14th gen? Is it just 13th gen refresh? Is it something new? Gigabyte did not say anything to that effect, but I'm going to personally call it 14th gen because I think that's what Intel is probably going to do. They're going to say, hey, you know what? These new chips, they're going to be Raptor Lake refresh, and they're moving forward. This is going to be 14th gen. They're going to call it a generation. Whether you agree with it or not, I think that's probably the case. But I did get a couple things from Gigabyte looking at these refresh boards. So these are our Z790 refresh boards that are obviously coming out soon. And I did ask the question, okay, does that mean there is no Z890 coming anytime soon? And they confirm, yeah, that's whatever the next gen is from Intel. So that would allude to, okay, these are just the refresh, and this isn't desktop Meteor Lake from that. But then also the bigger thing for me, which I want to ask people here to see if you agree that this is a big deal or not, is that it's still the LGA 1700 socket, which means whatever this next gen is going to be is going to be in that same socket. And that's the first time Intel has had 3 generations in the same socket in a while. I don't know.
Without chipset shenanigans.
Yeah. No, yep. The chipset is the same. Nothing has changed on that.
Because we had 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th all used the same socket,
but the chipset changed. Yeah.
But the chipset changed, and you couldn't use like certain ones. Like they drew an artificial gap between the 7th and the 8th or something.
And it doesn't mean that the performance improvements won't be there. So Gigabyte, one of the big things they were talking about was memory overclocking. They were very confident in being able to hit 8266 at launch, and that's for a number of reasons. And they believe that that's going to be the highest of the vendors that will launch with whatever next gen is, and that's for a couple things. Obviously, the memory controller in whatever the next gen CPU is going to be more advanced, going to be more stable to hit those higher clocks. But then Gigabyte specifically had some PCB design changes. They call it server grade. They've got some marketing material showing like the different layers have been kind of messed around with. The memory routing to the CPU has been changed to kind of facilitate faster speeds. But then they also on the higher end boards had this thing that they were calling I think it's back drilling. Where they actually go in the back of the motherboard where the RAM traces are, and they drill into them to shorten the whatever the trace is that's leading to it. Supposedly that's going to help. That stuff was way over my head, so I'm not gonna claim to fully understand that. But either way, Gigabyte just really felt really confident that, hey, sure maybe a lot of that is going to come from the actual chip itself, but that the changes they have for Z790 refresh are going to be beneficial. Anyway, that was kind of what I can glean from performance. We haven't seen numbers. We haven't seen any sort of data of what's gonna come out of the next gen. But going back to the socket thing, if this is just a Raptor Lake refresh with higher speeds, maybe more E-cores, maybe better memory tuning, is that enough to call it a new gen? Brad, what do you think?
By the modern generational standard, yes. These days, generations are a mixture of marketing and actual technological advancements. So it's very different from what it used to be. Uh, I think that if they are able to hit these much higher clock speeds, there was actually it's interesting to me that one, I believe you're the one who broke the news about Z790 being or this socket still being the one to go forward. I think you were the first one to confirm that from someone like Gigabyte. Just a day or two after that, video cards found an unlisted video from MSI training for folks that basically says, yeah, it's basically is just a refresh. They're expecting to see about 3% faster than 13th gen. In most things, the Core i7 is getting more efficiency cores, so it'll be higher. So there's all kinds of things leaking about this right now from very official companies. But yeah, I mean, they got to put new generational products out so they have a new Christmas lineup of PCs to sell. So that's the bottom line.
Yeah, and they already pulled that KS trigger. So this, and they're not going to call everything down the stack a KS. You're not going to have a 14500 KS. That probably doesn't make sense. So yeah, no, I could see why they would come out and call it 14th gen if that's what is true. But it was also funny. A lot of people in the comments of my video that I made, people were like, "What are you talking about? This has been known forever." And I'm like, I believe this is the first time that it's been officially said. Sure, the leaks have mentioned stuff, but I believe this is the first time that it's been officially said. So
the leaks have covered both ways and other ways too. Now,
there's a reason I don't cover much leaks.
Yeah. Which once again, so the other way to look at it, because I think there's two ways to look at it. You can either see this as a negative, which a lot of people in the chat are saying, like, yeah, you know what, this is just a minor bump, maybe some more E-cores on a specific thing, and this is no news. But also, I think the other way to look at it is if you did get it on 12th gen, say, hey, you know what, now I have even more options to upgrade in that socket because it'll support Z690. I'm actually still on a Z690 board as well, and I have a 13th gen chip. So, like, being able to have those increases, or I'm sorry,
cool.
More options, I still think that's worth it. I mean, as opposed to them just not releasing anything at all. Like, okay, so maybe they don't call it 14th gen, maybe they call it something else, or maybe they just don't really. I mean, I still think more options are better, right?
I mean, I guess it really depends on the price and what you get for it. There's other leaks that are suggesting Raptor Lake refresh might actually cost more as well at every level, and I'm like, I don't see how you pull that one off.
Yeah, okay, well that would be.
And my question is more like, if Raptor Lake refresh on desktop is 14th gen, will there also still be Meteor Lake on desktop as a 14th gen, or will that not happen on desktop? I mean, Meteor Lake, I don't even know for sure what the CPU cores architecture are supposed to be. Like, I think they're supposed to use Intel 4, their 7 nanometer node. But then it's tiled. And so I'm like, well, the tiling opens up a lot of questions, and like, what are they putting on? They can put on a much bigger GPU, which makes a lot of sense for mobile, but on desktop, it's like, yeah, who needs a bigger integrated GPU? Some people might like it in theory, but in practice, I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't pay a lot extra for it because I'd rather just go buy a graphics card if I want faster graphics. So, I mean, I don't know. Do we know if Meteor Lake is still coming to desktop?
I don't. I've only seen the rumors. Right there. I don't believe there's anything official out there for desktop.
And it covers both ways.
Yeah.
Again,
Once again,
it is and it isn't coming.
The laptop, there's definitely a lot more stuff to talk about on Meteor Lake laptop stuff, but the desktop is I'm not. I don't know.
I kind of feel like
Intel hasn't said anything really about desktop. So
I feel like Meteor Lake is going to be like Broadwell, which, if you don't know, that was the 5th gen core, and it launched on mobile and then sort of got a desktop version right before Skylake, which was 6th gen. So it's like almost no one ever bought Broadwell for a desktop PC. It was for laptops and pretty much it. Broadwell E was different because that was their HEDT stuff. But, and I feel like the way it's going, Meteor Lake could very much end up, well, like Tiger Lake too. Tiger Lake never came to desktops. And we know lots of people are buying laptops and skipping desktops. I'm still an old guy holdout who likes my big honking desktops and power hungry graphics cards. So
also, it sounds like a big part of the Meteor Lake story is efficiency, which matters on desktop, but matters more on laptop. So.
Yeah. Well, going from Intel 7, 10 nanometer down to Intel 4, 7 nanometer will certainly help. Like Raptor Lake is not a cool running low power chip, especially like the 13900K. It can hit 100C. Yeah, it can be when it's not doing a lot, but it can hit 100C even with liquid cooling, and it can suck down 250 watts of power. So, if they do a die shrink of just the same architecture, like it could conceivably drop that power use quite a bit. And that would be good to see even on desktop, but I don't know that we will actually see it. We might have to wait for what's next. Arrow Lake, Lunar Lake, I think
Arrow.
Yeah, no, I believe so.
Arrow, then Lunar.
Elena, do you think this is a good deal to have three generations in the same socket? Are you happy by this?
You're muted.
Oh, you're muted, Elena. No, she's just thinking really hard.
I honestly think that's dependent on what the performance is going to be of the quote unquote third generation on the socket, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what made AM4 so amazing was that you could do a realistic upgrade on the same platform, right? Like somebody who bought first gen would actually be realistically looking at Ryzen 5000. It's not like one of those things where it's like, oh, it supports X number of generations, but no one's actually going to buy it in the time frame that those generations come out, right?
Mm-hmm. But
to me, like if you were somebody who bought the first generation on LGA 1700, like I think the performance of the quote unquote third generation is going to dictate whether or not it'd make it worth it to upgrade. That's how I see it.
Or because the other way to look at it is that if you were on 12th gen and you were like, oh crap, you know what, like I it's long in the tooth, I don't know, it's only a couple years old, it's long in the tooth, and I need to upgrade. You're talking about just the chip upgrade rather than the whole platform upgrade
in place. Yeah, because that's really the question you're asking me though, right? Because it's like if you're saying like, because to me the only benefit of having it on that socket sorry, my brain. It's lunchtime, everybody. So having that many number of generations is for someone who's doing an in-place upgrade, right? Because if you're buying brand new, it doesn't really matter to you at that point what it's going to be. In fact, you're looking for something that's going to have more legs to it.
Maybe.
I think the legs thing is part of the story, though, because it's like, well, let's say Intel were to try and do a hypothetical Z890. What would they do? What would it add? Like, what does Z790 and even Z690 not give you that you'd be like, oh yeah, like on AM4, like you went from PCI Gen 3 to PCI Gen 4, and you went from it was all DDR4, wasn't it? Mm. But they added USB 3.2 Gen 2x2, whatever. Like they added some new stuff with the later generations, and they increased the link between the chipset and the CPU socket at one point. I might be fuzzing some things up there, but it's like I look at what Z690 and Z790 add, and it's like, well, they're not going to add PCIe Gen 6 right now. Like it exists, but it's not ready for consumer market anytime soon. So
that hasn't stopped.
Don't really need
stopped implementation.
No, it hasn't.
Forward-looking tech.
In this case, we don't even have Gen 5 graphics cards yet, outside of like the H100 has a Gen 5 Connect. So there's really literally nothing new to add to the chipset right now that I think would be worthwhile and compelling.
Yeah. No, either way though, I am quick to not rush to be like, this is stupid, forget about it. If there's one thing that we've learned from AIM-4, and it looks like AIM-5 is going to hold true to that same thing, is like, hey, having these platforms around longer is better to have options for the consumer. So sure, maybe it's just a refresh. Maybe that's just where Intel couldn't do it now and steer that huge boat when the AIM-4 was in its heyday. But in the future, maybe in the future, it's like, hey, this could be a signaling of a newer Intel that allows for more than 2 generations on the same socket.
It will depend on how it works out for him, probably.
Right. Yeah, but this seems like an easy kind of softball. Like, you know what? It's just a refresh. Might as well do it anyway. So hopefully it works out well, in their favor. Because I think that is something that people have loved about AIM-4, and a lot of, at least I hear a lot of people saying, okay, I went into AIM-5 brand new because of I know I get that longevity. So hopefully this is a signaling that Intel is looking into that. And
my guess is it'd be cool if they did take that away, but they never marketed this as going to be 3 generations long or anything like that.
Mm-mm.
So I would highly doubt that they would ever do that, to be honest, because they like their rapid pace of innovation on motherboards. It lets them add things much faster. They had DDR5 way before AMD did. So PCIe 5.
And that's the other way to look at it too, right? Yeah. I mean, that's the thing Gordon has always said, is like, hey, yeah, sure, it's only 2 in the same socket, but yeah, you're getting upgrades way quicker. So, I feel like 3. Like, I feel like 3 is a good middle ground. Like I feel like that's for me at least, like that's enough to be like, okay, you know what? Maybe if I got in on whatever that first gen of the socket, and there's 2 more gens after that, that's not. But sure, it's not the really long tail of like AIM-4. But
if you jumped in on like 12900K and Z690, right, at when those first launched, that's the hard thing for me. Is I'm like, you go, well, so who bought a Z690 and still wants to use it and get an upgrade where the upgrade will be that meaningful? 13900K was actually a bigger jump than I was expecting, but I'm not expecting a lot from 14900K. So it's like, well, maybe like if you bought in at a Core i5 and then you're like, yeah, I'm ready to upgrade, I think that's the more likely route. I just don't know that a 14th gen Raptor Lake refresh is going to be that much different from a 13th gen i5 or i7 or whatever. We'll have to see where they land.
We'll see.
The i7 says you're getting the 4 extra efficiency cores. That's the big change, it seems like. How high will they get clocks? Will the power be better? Those are interesting points, but I mean,
and hey, those faster RAM speeds too. I mean, Gigabyte, they not only did they say they're confident they're going to have that 8266, and be the fastest board out there. They were like, this is just the beginning. They feel like they can push it even further. They weren't willing to say what numbers, but
are those useful RAM speeds? Because like at some point you have to shift from gear 2 to gear 4 or whatever it is, and it's like, okay, so you clocked your memory way higher, but you actually lost performance.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yet to be seen. Obviously, we'll see. We'll see testing. We'll see when the testing comes. Brad, do you need to pop off?
I can answer a question or two.
All right, we got. We're going to switch over to the Q&A now. If you have questions, get them in the chat. If you're watching live at PC World, that's kind of the easiest way for us to see it and mark it down. If you're listening or watching later, use the link in the description. Go over to Discord. I actually started something fresh on Discord. I started one of the forums that they have. I don't even know how to use it. I just started it and was like, hey,
we have one.
Let's figure it out. Yeah.
We have a set.
Yeah.
I might have reorganized it a little.
No, please do it. Like it's one of those things that I love Discord because there's a lot of ways to do it, and I like messing around with it. And I feel like our community is like a really good, tight knit community right now. And it's like, okay, now's a good time to kind of try to scale things up and have some fun with it. So anyway, get over there. There's a channel for questions that hopefully I'll read. Sorry, Discord.
One quick note. It is a tight-knit group, but also very welcoming. And we've had some new
Very welcoming.
faces on there, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
the more the merrier. Please come join us.
For sure. Even if you just want to come talk food, we have a food channel.
Come play with
Oh,
us.
yes, we do.
Come play
Don't
with
talk food
us.
right now though, because I'm hungry and
I
it's
know.
lunchtime.
I'm sorry.
Right?
So let's get to a couple questions. Bob Jones asks as a follow up for the new GPUs: is there a embargo date for reviews of the 7700 XT and the 7800 XT?
There is, I'm sure. I don't know if it's going to be September 6th or if it will be the like is that the retail launch date? And if so, will the reviews go live the day before or the day of launch? I'm not actually totally sure on that yet. But we know the cards are available September 6th.
Yeah, I never talk about whether or not I'm under embargo for most things. But typically with GPU reviews, it'll be like Jared just said, the morning of or the day before, typically at 9 a.m. Eastern time. So if you're really keen to know, historically, like for the
and if you want more fun,
testing reviews.
If you want more fun, good GPUs or GPUs that are at least not bad, they let the reviews go live a day before, and ones that are less likely to be good, they might do like the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte where they're not sampled. Oh, ouch.
Historically, yeah. We got a $5 super chat earlier from a friend of the show, VC Jester, asking you, Brad. Speaking of getting angry about everything, I noticed the lack of background in Brad's stream. Was he bought off by Big Sheetrock? Huh? Are you just here to give us a big ad for Sheetrock?
No, but Smart Water is great.
Oh, there you go. I'll take some Smart Water.
Ching. Check's being deposited right now.
I would never actually buy Smart Water. I'm a tap or whatever's cheap at the store kind of guy. But my girlfriend had this, and it was sitting next to the bed, and I ran out of Pepsi. So,
oh, there you go. Liquid death.
I can't do Pepsi anymore.
You took the challenge and you
no,
made it?
No. I got COVID a year and a half or something ago, 2 years ago, whatever it was. And it changed my taste buds, and colas have a bitter aftertaste.
Oh.
So I can do Dr. Pepper, which is my go-to drink beforehand anyway, because it's not a cola. But Pepsi and Coke, both of them, I taste it and I like, oh, that's gross.
Wow. Weird.
Tastes like charcoal.
Well, that sucks.
Oof.
I like a good Coca-Cola.
You like Co-Fiber.
Coke is not as bad as Pepsi on the aftertaste. I can still drink Coke okay. It just doesn't taste quite as good as
Does it depend on the real sugar versus the aspartame? No, same thing.
I've tried them all on Pepsi,
okay.
like even the wild cherry Pepsi or mango Pepsi or whatever. They're all like, I taste them. I'm like, oh yeah, there's something in there that doesn't go well with me now.
Wait, hold the phone. There's a mango Pepsi out there.
Yes.
Wow.
I don't know if it's still around. My mom had it, so I visited her and she had it, and she's like, yeah, I like this. And then she found out like it had 65 milligrams of caffeine while the wild cherry had 25 or something. She's like, what? Why has it got so much caffeine?
Well, there is a mango liquid death. That's my goal. That's my goal for next year. We need a liquid death sponsorship.
There you go.
Good grief.
There you go.
That's our next one. We've tried to go after Disney, McDonald's, toilet paper, Charmin. we haven't gotten them, but maybe liquid death. Maybe liquid death is the one that we can get. Anyway, no other pertinent questions for Brad. So if you wanna pop out,
okay.
Now's a good
Yeah,
time.
I got to go. Sorry, I just have a meeting in 5 minutes.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Brad.
Bye.
We do have a couple comments
Okay.
with super chats. Space Channel 5, ooh la la, gave us £2 earlier. Said Nvidia should have released a 12 gig 4080.
They did. It was the 4070 Ti.
Yeah, there you go. Boom. Done. Easy. Space Channel 5 also gave us £5 a little bit later. Ooh la la. Thank you. Said the fun fact about AI is the hyperscalers will eat their lunch. AWS will just make their own chips. So this is way out of the realm of my understanding about server side stuff. But Jared, how much do you know about this kind of stuff?
I know that Google just announced their V5 TPU. their tensor processing unit.
Mm.
That's an AI chip.
I guess the question I'm wondering, does that mean NVIDIA's like gobbling up all this money right now, but in a couple years from now, people like AWS are like, you know what, we don't need to buy your cards. We're making our own chips.
So Google and AWS and Microsoft, like they all are kind of doing the same thing where it's like they have to offer multiple options. So with Google's cloud stuff, you can have their TPUs. Mm-hmm. You can get V3, V4. I don't know if there's still V2 deployed. Probably now there's V5 come out. They actually said it was up to, gosh, they had a number. It was like 400 petaflops of compute, but that's int8 compute using 256 chips. And so I did the math and I was like, that's like 390 tera ops per chip. That's not actually that high for 8-bit integers. I think Intel and AMD, or not Intel, NVIDIA and AMD are pushing like well into the 1,000 tera ops range. So anyway, but so you've got to have the hardware, but then you've also got to have the software and it's got to be optimized for it. So like basically Google offers also A100s and H100s from NVIDIA because their customers want them. And so, you know, until people stop using NVIDIA and switch to Amazon's or Facebook's or whoever's specialized AI chip, like the cloud providers will have to offer all of them. And they'll just need to figure out the right ratio of what people want to use versus what's out there. I mean, right now, NVIDIA's been doing this AI stuff the longest, and they've been pushing it for a long time. And so CUDA is pretty entrenched as the go-to standard, and it will take quite a while for that to get displaced, even if everyone wanted to. I mean, AMD, well, the Department of Energy got upset with NVIDIA, it feels like, and decided, hey, let's shift to AMD. And so they're bootstrapping AMD's ROCm and stuff because they want an open source rather than closed source ecosystem. But that will still take time to trickle down. So El Capitan and Frontier are coming online, and those don't have CUDA. But how long until that trickles down and affects the wider market? I don't know. Same with Aurora. You know, Aurora's got Intel's Sapphire Rapids and Ponte Vecchio, and it uses one API instead of CUDA. So,
are you covering hot chips going on right now at all?
I haven't watched too much. I looked for any GPU stuff that I'm more consumer GPU, so there's a lot of AI stuff happening at Hot Chips. It's all AI right now. You know, given all the news about how much money NVIDIA is making in AI, that's kind of not surprising how big so many companies have gone on AI suddenly. Oh, we're buying 30,000 GPUs to do AI. Everyone wants to do a chat GPT.
Great. Well, friend of the show, Dr. Ian Cutress, Tech Potato, is in the Bay for Hot Chips, and we're trying to get together to do some more videos. So maybe I'll ask him about some of this stuff. Here's a question from SatNav. Will cloud gaming become mainstream within 4 years? Very specific. 4 years. No.
Stadia already died.
Well, define mainstream. What do we define mainstream? How will we know?
And what are we defining as cloud gaming?
I would say anything running on the server side. So not local streaming. I would say, yeah, you're running a game on something that is not hardware around you. You're receiving.
I don't know
just
enough people that use GeForce now, so like I think that's the best cloud gaming solution right now. There's also Xbox stuff and PlayStation stuff. I don't do consoles very much, so I couldn't really tell you how good they are. But most people that I know who play games, they either have a console or they have a PC and they're not doing streaming. I don't know that I've really encountered anyone who's like, oh yeah, I've gone all cloud gaming and streaming and it's working great for me. I think you probably could do okay with that if you really wanted to, but no one seems to be interested.
Do you think you could ever switch over to be like, hey, you know what? It's nice. I just played on my TV.
If you have that fiber.
like we do. Yeah. No, so yeah, that's the thing.
So what I want to also ask is, so does cloud gaming the Xbox account, since like we have Xbox Game Pass, and some games that I can't run on I have an Xbox One, so games that newer games that can't run on Xbox One, they have to put it out on cloud gaming, like Need for Speed Unbound that I've been playing just recently on PC, but when I want to switch it over to a console, it just I have to stream it, which I kind of avoided a little bit.
Why for you specifically?
Just latency.
So you feel it.
Just a bit, yeah.
Huh.
So in 4 years,
even though you've got that fiber, or are you over Wi-Fi to your Xbox, or
no,
you
it's
hardwired it?
Hardwired.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
wow.
So I was like maybe in 4 years, maybe, but as of right now, nah.
The convenience factor. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say this was a question for Brad. Why did you hold it?
Yeah.
So just for context, Jared, for the longest time, Brad was not promoting, but like basically always mentioning GeForce Now as an alternative to GPUs because of how bad the pricing was during the pandemic. So it became kind of a running gag on the show. And also for some more context, though, Satnav was also the same person who was talking about energy prices. So I think that may be part of the reason for the question, because pricing is so bad for energy right now in Europe. I think he was saying, or they were saying, excuse me, it was like 52, almost 53 pence per kilowatt hour. So what is that?
You can get up above 50 cents per kilowatt hour.
Yeah, it's high. So
that's almost 5 times what I pay.
It's ridiculous.
That's why I really do feel like it is a part of the future, because the convenience, right, to be able to like, all right, well, I don't got to download a game, I don't got to worry about storage on my hard drive. The convenience factor is there, especially if you're like, oh, do I even like this game? Do I even want to try to download this game? If you have a data cap and you're like, oh, you know what, sure, even if I have Xbox Game Pass and it's part of that, but maybe I don't want to download the game because I don't want to, hit my cap.
I'm still waiting for data caps to just die. They're so.
Well, I guess streaming's going to hit the data cap too, though. So I don't know if that applies. But then the power thing, right? You're not using as much power. So you're
just pushing it off to the data center, letting them use the power.
Yeah, I feel like the benefits are potentially there. I can see why, right? But it's just and maybe it is like just huge in the background, and us who love the physical hardware and pushing things to the limit are just like, we don't see it. So I don't know. Within 4 years, I mean, I don't think it's going away. I think it will continue to kind of like to go, I guess. Like I feel like the only reason why Stadia went away is because of their pricing structure. That didn't make sense. And like ownership of at the game level, that just didn't make any sense. So like I don't think cloud, like them Stadia shutting down is indicative of cloud gaming going forward in the future. But
someone's still trying to do it right. We need no one has yet managed to do the Netflix of gaming.
I think the GeForce Now model works pretty well, though. That's one of the reasons why I asked that question, like, how are we defining cloud gaming? Because it's like, depending on the model, it can take, or it'll have more legs or it won't have more legs, as we saw with Stadia versus GeForce Now.
Yep.
It is always dangerous when you give ownership through a particular platform.
Well, that's why I actually think the Xbox One I can see a more potential future, because the GeForce One requires you to already own the game, except for the case of free to play, obviously. So like that's why I like the Xbox One, because that's the closer to a Netflix thing of being like, hey, you know what? I don't have this game, but it's part of Game Pass. I might as well just load it up and try it. So I don't know.
Oh, speaking of Game Pass, just FYI to everybody, I think it's soon in September where they're changing Xbox Live, or they're killing off Xbox Live Gold, and replacing it with Xbox Game Pass Core. So we don't know. I don't know if the conversion trick is going to survive that. So if you've been thinking about loading up on Xbox Live Gold to convert to Ultimate, because it includes PC Game Pass, and that still works out to being cheaper than paying the normal set rate for PC Game Pass, you might want to do that soon.
Yeah, probably should, because I think my 3 years is up next year. when I did that
next year.
Trick,
so what I would recommend for that is the current way of doing that is buying gold cheap through various sources that you can find on Slick Deals, and then adding it to your account, and it'll convert at a lower rate, but it still works out to being pretty cheap. I can talk about that with you later.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Star asks, do you think AIB board partners are not doing well in the GPU market due to the competition with reference models and the focus on AI? That's two questions. So do you think the reference models are hurting AIB partners?
I mean, I think that was partly EVGA's beef, that they were, and not just the reference cards, though. The real beef was probably that NVIDIA was trying to take a bigger cut of the pie. And so it's like, maybe before it was like, oh, well, hey, here's a card or a GPU that they sell to EVGA for $300, and then EVGA sells it for $500, $600, whatever. And then, if NVIDIA went, we want more of it. So they said, we're going to sell you that same GPU for $450 instead of $300, generational, changes. But that was definitely something that people have looked at and said, maybe that's why EVGA left. It's been interesting looking at the card models from both AMD and NVIDIA, where it's like certain SKUs were no Founders Edition. So there's no 4070 Ti Founders Edition. There's no 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte Founders Edition. And that's it. There's a 4060 Founders Edition, right? No, there's no 4060 Founders Edition either. So, and then on AMD's side, there is no 7700 XT Founders, or not Founders, but reference card. So it's kind of like, well, you look at the models that don't have the reference card, and you kind of go, it almost feels like they kind of gave the worst cards to the AIBs and said, you guys get to make all of these, have fun.
But also lower down the stack is where the more cards get bought too, though.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like 4060 is not bad, but like 4070 Ti, not my favorite GPU in the product stack. The 7700 XT, based on what we've seen of the specs, it feels like it's too close price wise to the 7800 XT. So I'm like, man, who's going to buy that? If you can't pay the extra $50 for what could potentially be like a 20 to 30% boost in performance, that just seems like a weird product to buy. So I don't know. Like AMD usually stops making reference edition cards sooner than NVIDIA stops making Founders Edition. And I don't know how many Founders Editions actually get made. Like NVIDIA doesn't publish those numbers and said, hey, we sold, 1,030,080 Founders Editions. We don't know how many were actually made. We just know that they all went to Best Buy. That's about the size of it.
And me personally, this is an anecdote of one store. I've never seen a Founders Edition in the Best Buy that I'm close to. So I don't know. I don't feel like that they're
kind of there at launch, and then they kind of disappear, has been my experience.
Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't feel like I know people who are like, oh yeah, I know everybody who just uses Founders Edition, because it seems to be hard to get your hands on. So
it's also, you also have to wonder with like the 40 series, especially the Founders Edition cards, have all been pretty dang good in terms of manufacturing and all that stuff, cooling. So, the 4080 is almost overkill for a 300 and whatever watt card. And the 4090, it is what it is. It's the big honker. I still don't like the 16-pin connector, but whatever. Like that's the biggest drawback to the Founders Edition cards, is that they all use the stupid 16-pin adapters. And so it's like, you get the little straight sticking up wire off of a 4060 Ti, and you're like, yeah, this thing doesn't bend well, and now it pokes out 6 inches from my card. That doesn't look good.
Yeah. Anyway, yes, Founders Editions. So the second part of it was, do you think AIB board partners are not doing well in the GPU market because of the focus on AI?
I don't think AI has really impacted the consumer market so much. That's more like the chip supply and demand. I think they're not doing as well as they did the last 2 years because of cryptocurrency dying.
Yeah.
Mining dying anyway. No Ethereum.
Well, speaking of reference designs, did you get your hands on or physically get to see that Starfield Radeon?
I haven't seen it, no.
I got to see
I've seen pictures.
But... Yeah, I got to see it in person at that Gamescom pre-brief. It's a good looking card. But they said they're making so little that they're only doing giveaway on that. And I was like, have you considered selling it? Because that's a good looking card.
Someone was saying that it was not being sold by AMD.
It's not being sold. Yeah, they at least they said to me at the briefing they have a limited quantity and it's all going out through giveaways, and that they're not. When asked if they were going to produce them, he was like, we're looking into it, but it was pretty non-committal. I doubt it. So, yeah. Here we go. Friend of the show, VC Jester. Friend of the show, VC Jester gave us $5. Said everyone talks about power consumption. We need to talk about the real higher power consumption increases the temperature in your computer room. Ain't that the truth? Like for me, like power consumption, I'm privileged enough to not worry too much about it. But man, when that heat starts dumping off into my room, especially in these warmer summer months. Yeah, I think twice about how hard I push my systems. So
it's why my office is in my basement now. My last house before we moved, my office was upstairs. We didn't have a basement either, but it got hot in the day, and so being in the basement does help. All the cool air comes down here, and
you're lucky. I mean,
in the wintertime, I sit there and I close the office door and. Let's run some benchmarks, heat this place up. My wife comes down to my office in the winter and she's like, it's really warm in here. I should come down here more often. I'm like, yeah, it's great.
No, I it'll even inform my handheld experience too. I'm like, usually I'll just, I try to push the turbo mode and stuff like that to get the most performance out of it. But man, when that thing is just dumping off heat, I'm like, maybe I'll run in performance mode, or maybe I'll run on the Switch because that thing doesn't dump off too much heat. So
I would say I have it bad because my apartment is carpeted. So with that it's not that my PC's on the floor running on carpet.
Thank goodness.
But it's still hot when it's a carpeted room.
Yeah. And you have that big window facing the west.
Oh yeah.
So you get that evening that evening blast. Elena, has your gaming experience informed anything by the heat that it outputs?
No, for me it's mostly electricity costs.
Oh really?
Because honestly, I live in San Francisco, so I don't have to worry as much as you guys on the East Bay with the huge temperature swings typically. So I have the privilege of just, watching my energy consumption like a hawk, being like, all right, today is the console day.
That doesn't sound like you at all. And then the last super chat that I saw here was Skeet Sayer gave us $2 Canadian. Thank you so much. Said, isn't Cyberpunk 2077 not just an R&D lab for NVIDIA?
I mean, they've pushed the boundaries on what you can do with graphics engines. When you combine the potential of DLSS 3.5's ray reconstruction, which basically says, hey, we can do higher quality denoising without the performance hit. You combine that with full path tracing and all this other stuff, and it's like, Cyberpunk 2077 in the full path tracing mode.
Overdrive mode.
Yes, RT overdrive with a 4090 and with DLSS2 upscaling and with FrameGen. It's like it runs super playable, and you go, wow, this is great. And so you kind of go, when will that experience extend to other games? And the problem is, like, what percentage of people own even a 4090 or 4080 or 4070 Ti? Like, it's not that money, but you do look at it and you say, full path tracing is potentially in reach of a certain market segment. It can look better.
I guess the other way to spin that question is, if NVIDIA willing to go in there and do the work and give the resources, or whatever happens in that partnership to change hands, and NVIDIA wasn't part of that, do you feel like CD Projekt Red developers and stuff would be pushing it as hard as they can?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I would love to know how much money NVIDIA has put into Cyberpunk over the years. Like from development resources to direct funding to whatever. Like it's a significant chunk of change, I'm sure. I just don't know how much that is, but it was probably enough to keep CD Projekt Red well into the black for a long time.
Well, I guess the other question of that is, They did mention FSR3 fluid motion frames coming to Cyberpunk, right?
Yep.
Because of the business deals that they've done with NVIDIA, does that mean they're going to make the implementation worse?
I haven't looked at FSR2 and DLSS 2 closely in Cyberpunk. I know it supports XeSS as well, so it's got all three upscalers, and you do have to wonder. It's like, well, maybe they are just nerdy enough people that they're like, hey, it's cool, let's support everything. I mean, they
have a Steam Deck preset in there.
Yeah.
Like, yep. I love
they
that.
kind of had to add that, right? You needed to tone down things to get it to run on a Steam Deck.
And they did it quick too. Like, so like I feel a little more confident in saying that they're willing to push the edge in a lot of ways, not just because of the whole NVIDIA stuff. And I feel like a good point would be that whole Steam Deck thing. I mean, obviously it benefits them. But yeah.
I mean, Steam Deck's really interesting just because like it's done more to push Linux gaming than really anything.
Yeah.
Like Linux gaming is now, you kind of wonder, like, when are we going to see new Steambox takes from people going, hey, we've got Proton and all that other stuff running with SteamOS, and you don't actually have to use Windows. But I mean, PlayStation 4 is Linux based too, so it hasn't happened from there.
We got a $5 Canadian super chat for friend of the show, Coffee. Thanks so much. Said I would definitely buy AMD over NVIDIA if I could get one of those AMD Starfield Edition GPUs. Yeah, it was. In terms of like looking at a GPU and being like, dang, okay, that's a pretty good design. Like, because it's not too overly done. Yeah.
It's the same core design as the reference cards, just different colors, right?
Different colors, yes.
I mean, did they do anything else besides the coloring?
I don't think so. Oh, no, actually, it does come with a power cable that has colored sleeves. Oh,
that's nice.
Yeah, I have a photo of it. I'll share it over on Discord if I haven't already. Because but they do have the box for one of the CPUs as well, but that's just the box, obviously. Yeah, and actually the box in that the Starfield GPU comes in is like real kitted out too. Very nice. Mandy, thank you for all these super chats. I appreciate. SatNav gave us £5. So thanks for the stream as always. No, thank you for hanging out in the stream. I think we should wrap it up there.
Actually,
you got something else?
Before we go, I just want to address something over on Discord. Our chat over on Discord has noticed that we look sharper today. Fashion, yes. Hairstyle, check. Yeah, but also more importantly, we look sharper on video. Why is that, Adam?
Do we? Are we? Is that what they're referencing to? Oh, okay. Because I mean, hey, if we're looking sharp, then yeah, we're looking sharp. Thank you. No, we actually made a change recently based off of a friend of the show, Adam from Epos Vox. Had a little setting configuration talk about streaming in AV1 and in streaming out at 1440p, even though we're actually still capturing in 1080p. Or no, I guess we're bringing in 4K, and we were downscaling 1080p. Now we're downscaling to 1440p at AV1, but essentially the same bit rate. No, I guess a higher bit rate too.
So Kunika over in Discord has noticed our pegboard, the tools look sharper. So they see that. So
it was funny in side-by-side testing when we did it because last week was the first time we actually did it. I noticed the sharpest thing that I could notice was my arm hair, which I don't know if I like that or better or not, but that was like, oh wow, you can see my arm hair way better in the 1440p stream.
I mean, also because with AV1 the quality is so sharp. Sharp on Retro Sean also pointed out that even the TV screen, the Moore pattern,
the Moire,
pattern, the Moire is even more apparent. So I was like, do we need an upgrade for a new TV?
Yeah, because this is only 1080p, huh?
Yeah.
Is it?
Forgot.
Yeah, we should double check. I think it's only 1080p.
I mean, the TV's been here since even way before I got hired. So
yeah.
So,
before
like
my
7 or 8
time.
years old.
Before my time too. Yeah.
You can carbon date it. That's how old it is.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? Luis probably knows. Anyway, thank you for noticing.
Thank you.
If you're just listening to audio, you're missing out on all these amazing fine details that you're seeing on
all
video.
these beautiful people.
All
plus
these
me.
beautiful people, and then Jared. No, Jared, you're a beautiful person as well. Don't discount yourself. I think let's wrap it up there. Thank you everybody for showing up. I'm gonna bring up my notes because I had to go back and listen to what Gordon actually said to make sure I wasn't missing anything. Check back next week for your fix of PC Talk on the Full Nerd. To listen to us on the audio version of the podcast, go subscribe over at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, whatever. And if you do, leave a review on one of those services. Every time you do, our studio upgrades to a 4K TV. So I appreciate that. I want to say thanks to our special guest, Jared Walton from Tom's Hardware. Go to tomshardware.com or Google GPU hierarchy, right? Is that right, Jared?
That's the best one. GPU hierarchy.
Go over there, look at your hierarchy, just study it. And
if you're wondering why the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte isn't listed yet, it's because I haven't finished scanning everything and updating the text. It's like so close to being saved, and then you'll be able to see that it performs the same as the 4060 Ti.
Jared, the only feedback I can give you is that now you have the latest gen. That latest gen is starting to get a little cramped. I need to be like, oh wait, the latest gen includes all 3 vendors. When are you gonna break that out?
I've thought about that. So here's my plan. This is the true plan. Mm-hmm. I've been testing all of the exclusive new GPUs on two systems, the 12900K and the 13900K. Oh. That's extra work for me.
Wait, why are you doing that?
Because the GPU hierarchy had all the numbers for the 12900K.
Oh.
But it also has all the GTX cards and the old stuff. And I'm going to retire the old stuff in the near future. I mean, I'm going to leave it as a legacy hierarchy, sort of, where it's like, I may still continue to test things there, but I do want to shift to my new test suite. I've got spreadsheets that make things a little easier there. So, basically I will dump everything that doesn't support ray tracing hardware. Sorry.
Wow.
Like it's
What if
you'll
you
still
just
be able to see those old numbers, right? But I'm just like, it'll make it easier for me to only have one spreadsheet that I need to update.
Wow. So yeah, so at least according to this chart, that means dropping RDNA 1, Vega and Polaris, and then Pascal. What if you just have one column and it's just like hand-picked ones from older generations, like
but the new test suite, test suite has 6 ray tracing games with ray tracing enabled, I should say.
Dude, nobody plays ray tracing. Turn it off.
They do. It's becoming commonplace enough that I'm like, no, we need to see how it performs. So it's just one factor of the GPU performance. So I'm like, I will keep updating the old hierarchy with the 12900K system for a while. But at some point, it's like, you got to stop testing old stuff. I do not go back and retest R9 Fury cards or R9 390s or whatever. In fact, it's kind of like if things aren't supported with current drivers, that's a good indication that I'm ready to drop them from the hierarchy. They'll move to legacy status. So that's my intent at some point in the next little bit, is to have a new front page. The second page will be the current hierarchy that shows the non-ray tracing GPUs alongside ray tracing, at least for rasterization performance.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Gordon's going to be real sad that the 1080 Ti is not going to be on your list anymore. How's he going to know how to get mad about the 1080 Ti orders? Go to page 2.
That's my plan.
Okay, all right. Well, it sounds like you need an intern, Jared Walton from Tom's Hardware, just to run all your numbers.
I actually sometimes I feel like I don't want to pass the testing on to anyone else because I don't really trust people to do it right.
Okay.
There's something going on in the global market that you might look at and say, it's interesting that Jared doesn't want to trust automated benchmarking. Yeah, I don't want to trust automated benchmarking. You miss things, you make mistakes. Anyway, I sometimes feel like if I could just run the numbers and pass them on to someone else to write, that would be helpful.
That's what I do sometimes.
Not for everything, right? But
Yeah.
for the third party reviews, especially, because it's like, okay, so you've reviewed the Founders Edition or the reference card from AMD, NVIDIA, and then Asus or Gigabyte or MSI sends you a card, and you're like, it's the same card. It's not card, but same GPU, same performance. Like, what do you say to get excited about it?
It's got an RGB. That's what you say.
It's got more RGB.
Yeah.
You
How
should
much
buy
RGB?
this one.
The scale, or RGB scale. Anyway, thank you, Jared. Fine work. I appreciate you coming on the show as always. Thanks also to Elena and your the bun on your head.
Yeah, apparently that was the star of the show today.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, just pop.
Still making me hungry.
Yeah.
Fashionable.
Yeah. And thank you to Willis Live for controlling the verticals and the horizontals. Take us out of here, Willis. We'll see everybody later.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Happy Tuesday again. Go get some tacos. Go get dim sum, whatever is your cup of tea, right? And yeah, stay cool. Stay hydrated. We will see you next time. Bye.